Okay, so we are on Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. So we're about to start the very famous sugi of Naska de Rababa. I don't know if you took a peek ahead, but it's very, very short, two amudim ahead of us. So I'm going to indulge myself and I'm going to learn a little bit of Rashbam, just so we should, while we're getting through the Cheskes Abatim, we should get a little flavor of how Rashbam learns Gemara. So 8 lines up on Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis. Huda Malachavre, my boys Bayara. Reuven says to Shimon, why are you on my land? Amalei, Shimon says back to Reuven, Minoch Zavnis, I bought it from you. V'chalti shani chazaka. And I have a good claim to this land because I've been on it for 3 years. This is just a claim that he's been on it for 3 years. He has to prove it. Just saying something doesn't make it so. I see Chad Saada the Achlot Flashni. He brought one aid that he was there, and he had a chazak of Gimel Shanim. So Zok Gemara, Savar Rabbanan Kameda Abayla. The Rabbanan in front of Abaya thought to say, Hainu Naska de Rababa. This is the same as Naska de Rababa. So let's see the Rashbam. Rashbam says two pshatim what this means Hainu Naska de Rababa. The first pshat is the 3 lines to the bottom. Hainu Naska de Rababa. Din ze doimel oisa din shal Naska de Rababa. This is similar to the din of Naska de Rababa, which is the forthcoming din that the Gemara is about to explain. It's not that we needed to learn what the din is from Ravava. The mills the pshitihi. It's pashut. She shalom hakarka achar she'en le'shnei. Over here, we're saying he only has 2 eidim. He only has 1 aid that he was eichel shani chazak. So obviously that has no dispositive power. That's not going to prove anything. So you're claiming you were achel shalosh shanim. Obviously, you don't get the land with a claim that's only supported by a single aid. V'dumya ba'alma matminin, I say. And the Gemara is just saying there's another case that appears similar to it. That's the first pshat in the Rashbam. It's not a popular pshat amongst the Rishonim for obvious reasons. Where do you ever hear that the Gemara will say a case just to say, oh, on the outside it looks similar? It's not a typical way of analyzing Gemaras. Gemaras are brought for a reason, not just to show something looks similar. Inami, the second shot. This is the reason why we're comparing the case of someone has a single aid that he was Eichel Shalish Shanim. Good morning. We're on the bottom of Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. We're talking about the famous sugi of Naska de Rababa. The Gemara had brought the din. It brought the question of 2 people who chaylik on a piece of land, who it belonged to, and Shimon only had an aid, a single aid that he was Eichel Shalosh Shanim. We said it's similar to Naska de Rababa. So the Rashbam is explaining on the bottom. The question is not, as the Rashbam said, there's no question if you only have 1 aid, that you have a Cheskes Gimel Shanim, that's not going to be enough for Shimon to hold on to the land. The problem is Shimon brought 1 aid and he made a taina, but responsibilities come with those tainas. That means even though he's being unsuccessful in getting the karka, but he is making himself now possibly responsible for the peiros that he ate during those 3 years. So, because it's as if he has edim that he ate peiros. The beloy edim loy mahadri peiros. Kedol el derav Nachman al karka l'chod. Now, by his admission, together with the Eid Echad, it's as if he has an aid, as if there are Eidim saying that he ate Paris, and this may possibly should require him to pay the Paris. And the Gemara is going to now say what the din of Naska de Rababa is, and then we'll try to bring it back and analogize it and say that that will help us determine of whether Shimon, by bringing an Eid Echad that he was Eichel Shalosh Shanim, was now made himself responsible to pay for the Paris of those Shalosh Shanim, even though he was unsuccessful in getting himself to own the land with his Taina. So what's the case of Naska de Rabab? So 4 lines around that. Who Gavra? The Chot of Naska Mechavri. Shimon grabbed a Naska, a silver bar from his friend, from Reuven. Asula Kamei de Ravami. They came in front of Ravami. Haviyasa Ravava Kamei. And Ravava was sitting with Ravami. Aisu Chad Sada the Michtav Chot Famine. And Reuven brought one aid. It's now in the hands of Shimon. And Reuven brought an aid that Shimon took it from him. Amalei, and Shimon said, he said to the Bezdin and to Reuven, In Chatvi v'didi Chatvi. You only have one aid that I grabbed it from you, and it happens to be that the aid is telling the truth. I did grab it from you. However, it was mine. It was originally mine, and you had stolen it from me. So while you have an aid, but and I'm conceding that what the aide saw is true, but he's not saying the whole story. The whole story is that was really originally mine, and that's why I grabbed it from you. Amar Ravami, what should we do in this case? So the Rashbam goes through the 3 possibilities of how we should treat it. Sagt der Rashbam, right? If Reuven had come with 2 Eidim, that Shimon grabbed this silver bar from him, certainly the 2 Eidim would require that we take the silver bar from Shimon and we give it to Reuven, and we don't care that Shimon is saying Didi Chatvi, in Chatvi v'Didi Chatvi. It's like any Goslin. Let's say Goslin, you have someone you see going into someone's house and taking from his safe, and the guy says, "Oh, he owed me money, and that's why I took it." Do you have any shtar? Of course, we don't believe you. Now, if you have a shtar, it's a different story. But over here, he didn't have anything to support. Shimon didn't have anything supporting his contention that it was originally his. If there were 2 Eidim that he took it, he would certainly have to return it. No one is believed to take something from his friend. It's mine that I'm taking. Unless he has Eidim, that it's his. The Hamid Mammon al Cheskasai. Because we leave Mammon where it's Muchzik. And someone who's a Muchzik, and in this case, where we have 2 Eidim, that Shimon took it from Reuven is certainly the Muchzik, and he can't take it away from him without a riot. And Shimon takes it from him, he's a Gazan Gomer. So that's one possibility. That there would, if had there been 2 Eidim, we would have known what to do. If there wasn't even an Eid Echad saying that Shimon had taken it from Reuven, when Shimon now says, I took it, and it was my own thing that I took, Mehemen, certainly Shimon is going to be Neman. He has a great migu. He didn't know, nothing was forcing him to say that he took it from Reuven. He could have said, I never took it in the first place. Anu Roy might say, Muchzik the moment, because we see that he's holding the moment. So he would certainly be believed to say, this is mine. And even though he says now that I took it from Reuven, that's not going to at all ruin, flaw his taina because he has an amigo.
Yeah, but that migo is only dependent on him knowing that there's no Adam. He doesn't know yet. Sometimes Adam could have seen. He doesn't know at the time of
Well,
the.
okay, but if Adam come, then Reuven will be able to take him to a din Torah and get it away from him. It
His
only
migo.
works. The migu only works as long as there's no Adam. You're right. But if there were Adam, that would undo his migu. But for
Yeah,
now, why wouldn't we give it to Shimon?
what I'm trying to say is that a year later the Adam can come.
I'm sorry.
A year later the Adam can come. I mean, his own migo, and then he'll be caught lying. Meaning, it's not a good migo
Why is the fact that his migu that he'll be disproven later? I mean, why is it any different than someone comes and brings Adam one day,
because we
Shimon
know.
brings Adam, and then what if there's Adam that come later on to say they're Adam Zayman? You things can change. Well, why does that?
No,
Why does it take away the current power of the migu because of the fact that might later be Adam supporting the other side?
whenever we say migo, that I could have had a better taina. Doesn't that better taina have to be a glot taina? But in this taina is only predicated that there's no Adam, and that they still may come. It's not a slam dunk taina. It's not. This is a possibility. We could knock it off.
I mean, it's currently a slam dunk taina. You're saying
Sure.
that circumstance is changing. Circumstance changing doesn't take away from the power of the current migu. You know, I don't see how you're looking at it. We say you don't say migu b'makom edim, right? If they're edim that are contradicting the conclusion that we're getting to because of the migu, that we don't listen to the migu. But we don't say that you don't make a migu because of the possibility. What if Shimon admits later on that he was lying?
Right.
So then we would give
Right.
it back, but it doesn't take away from the current
Right.
power of the migu. So those are the first two options, right? So we say if there was two Adam, certainly Ruvain would win, the original owner, the original holder. If there were no Adam, certainly Shimon would win because he'd have a meek. So to continue the Rash, right? Inami, ki ikachad eid shechataf, if there would be a single aid shechataf, ilohaya, meaning, but the aid is saying ilohaya and so that's which is the case of Naska de Bava. Ilohaya zeh machisha loim eloi chatafti. If rather than saying in chatvi v'didi chatvi, had Shimon said instead, no, this aid is lying. In that case, he would be required to make a shavua that the aid is not telling the truth. An aid echad is able to force a shavua on what he's testifying. And if this person, if Shimon had disputed what the aid was saying, he would mechuyev a shavua aid echad. The aid echad kamu l'shavua. In all these three ways, we would have known exactly what to do. But in our case, where there is a single aid, like in the last option, however, Shimon is not disputing what the aid is saying. How are we going to learn? And now the Gemara goes through. So we're going to go back to the Gemara. I'm going to say what the options are. Lishalim, shall we require Shimon to return the bar of silver? Lakatrei Sadi, we don't have two Eidim. Like the Rashbam says, L'shalem the Hamoidish Achataf. He's Moidish Chatav, Loi Kol Emenu Shachaytav Lem Shalichataf, the Hemed Mamalachas Gazai. We only take half of what he says. We agree that we listen to him what he said that he grabbed it, but we don't listen to him about what he said Didi Chatafti because Reuven is a muhsik. So lakatrei sadi the chataf over migdi boy lemema loy b'chatafti mehem nema lemema didi chatafti. I'm sorry, l'shalom lakatrei sadi. Yeah, right. So the lakatrei sadi the chataf. So since there's no two edim, we can't make him pay because we don't have. He still has a migu that he could have said, "I never grabbed it at all." Lifterei to allow Shimon to get off scot-free and not pay back the Naska Ikachasada. However, there is one aid, like the Rashbam says, Lifter Mishum Hai Migu, Had he said, you want to say he should be potter because he has this migo that he could have said loy chatafti, but there is a single aid. And had he said loy chatafti, he would have had to make a shvua. So he doesn't have the greatest migo, because in the meantime there is an aid, and implicit in this is that he's avoiding the shvua by saying in chatafti v'didi chatafti. So whenever you're making a migu that's making your position better than with the taina that you're making, had you said loy chatafti at all, then this aid would require you to make a shvua. So by saying loy in chatafti v'di chatafti and saying that you should get away without a shvua, that's you're improving your position with the migu. Lishtaba. So okay, so you know what? Let's make him take the responsibility for the tiny he's making. Let him make a shvua connected the aid. He said that I grabbed it. Since he said he grabbed it, he's like a gazlan. So the Rashbam explains what is the problem with him making a shvua. L'shtaba es hashvua she'aid mechayvoi, to make the shvua that the aid is trying to tell him to make. The aid says that you grabbed it, and he's gonna have to make a shvua saying that I didn't grab it. Any yachol, he can't make a shvua that he didn't grab it. He agrees that he grabbed it. For aid mechayvoi lishava shaloi chatav lahakrish aid. He has to make a shvua. The shvua seid echad has to contradict what the aid echad is saying. You can't have the aid saying you grabbed, and then you make a second shvua saying that it was mine from the beginning. You can only the shvua seid echad that you're mechuyev is the aid is on the aidus of the aid echad. You can't make a non-connected shvua that's not contradicting the testimony of the Eid Echad. An Eid Echad can't determine the psak on anything. The shalom and shu kaifer to pay the money that he's denying. But Eid Mechayve lo yakum. Avol kamu l'shvua. But the Eid Echad, even though he can't finalize the din against the person, but he is believed to require shvua to contradict the aid. Shalichata b'mam zeh. V'gabe hak shvua puzzle kegazlan eitzel kol shvua. The lesser the meimer lishtava. Dididei chatav. He can't. He's puzzled. He's now the Gemara. The Rashbam has explained the lush of the Gemara that he's like a gazlan. What it means to say is a person who's a gazlan is not allowed to swear in bezdin. He's a hukash. He's a chashad ala shvua. This person, in order for him to make the shvua that the aid is requiring from him, he had already admitted that he grabbed it. To make a shvua now that he didn't grab it, that would be his shvua would not be believed because he's going to become a chashad ala shvua. He said one thing and now he's swearing the opposite. He said he grabbed it and now he's swearing he didn't grab it. Ela kol shvuas less it's a kol shvuas less like lemeimer l'shtava dididei chata. So in the shvua hamutalos olav, he can't make a shvua that he grabbed his own thing. That this is because this is not the shvua that he's being required by to say by the Eid Echad. And like we said before, since he's not able to make a shvua, we have a problem with the migu that he's had he said I was not chataf, he'd have to make a shvua. So you can't make a migu to avoid the shvua. Okay. It's interesting if you look at the Rashis, the Rashbam often repeats himself. Like he's trying to clarify, and he'll say over the same thing. Rashi very rarely will say the same thing in different words. The Rashbam is much longer because he will try very hard to clarify what he's saying. So in any case, we have this problem. What do we do by a naska de Rababa? What do we do by this gold bar, the silver bar, where he said in chatvi v'didi chatvi? Shimon said didi chatvi. I grabbed it, but it was mine, and Reuben brought an eid echad. Shimon is ultimately responsible to make the shvua that this Eid Echad is requiring him. In order to have a migu, he has to make the shvua, but he's not able to make the shvua like the Rashbam said, because then he'll be a chashan al shvua. He can only make the shvua that's required of him by the Eid Echad, and that's what he can't make because then he become a chashan al shvua, and he's unable to swear. Since he's not able to make the shvua, he's going to have to return the silver bar. Shimon's going to have to return the bar to Reuben. So now we go back to our original question, at least according to the second shot in the Rashbam that we saw before, that Shimon had Reuben's property in his possession, and he says that I was a muhsik, but he only has one aid that he was a muhsik, so he has to return. He was a muhsik of a shalishon. He has to return the karka. However, we had the question: does he have to pay back the payers? Because there is one aid here that's saying he was on the land for 3 years, and that requires Shimon to pay the payers. And if he can't pay the payers, if he wants to deny and say that it's not his property, that he wasn't there for 3 years, he's going to backtrack. Right? He had said he was there for 3 years. He said he was a Moshe. Now, if he wants to say, I wasn't there for 3 years, connected this Eid Echad, he's going to have to make a shvua. But he can't do that because he already said he was there for 3 years. So it's very similar to the case of Naska de Rababa, where he is caught in the web of his own taina. He was the one who said he was there for 3 years, and now he's actually the one who brought this Eid Echad, and now this Eid Echad is making it that he's mechuyev to pay for the payers, and he's not able to contradict him because he had admitted that he was there for 3 years. Amalei Abaya says, no, this is not a good comparison. You can't bring a rye from the case of Naskad Rav. Midami, Hasam, in that case, the Eid Echad that said that Shimon grabbed it for Reuven, that was brought by Reuven to support his taina that Shimon was a gazlan, and if he would have had 2 Eidim, it would have certainly been taken away from Shimon. We wouldn't have even come to this question of whether he's Eini Yachal Lishava Misham. He just would have been a regular gazlan. And had a second aid come, that would have certainly helped Reuben. But over here, this Eid Echad is brought by Shimon. Shimon brought this Eid Echad, and Shimon would have won. He would have not only would he have not had to pay the payers, he would have kept the karka for himself altogether. So therefore, you can't compare. You can't say because if he could have, this Eidus that was saying that he's unable to contradict this aid with a shvua, but he wants this Eidus to be true. So this is not really a shvua that's mutal on him. This Eidus is really, if this Eidus could be fully supported, if we could get the second aid, if we could flesh out this Eidus to be an Eidus that was an effective Eidus, then that would better the case of Shimon as opposed to making him only mechuyev. Now, it comes out that there is a downside to this Eidus, but since there's an upside to Shimon as well, we can't force him to pay because of an Eidus that he really wants to be an effective Eidus. Elidamya haderababa. So what would be the case that you could compare Rav Abba to? L'chad sadu l'tarta shni. If you only had one aid for 2 years, right? The exact same case, but where Shimon has Reuven's property in his possession, and Shimon says, I had Shani Chazaka, and he could only bring one aid that says he was there for 2 years. So even if you would have gotten a second aid to say the same thing, it wouldn't have helped Shimon's case. In that case, we say, since Shimon is not able to bring, he's not able to make a shvu on it because he can't contradict this aid, and this aid is totally antithetical to Shimon's purposes, because even if you had 2 aidim, he wouldn't get a chazaka with it. So therefore, that one aid since Shimon is not able to make a shvua connected him, will force Shimon to pay for the payers of those 2 years. Zaktimar, Hahu Arba, there was this boat. There were 2 people who were arguing about it. One person said that it was my boat, and the other guy said it was my boat. Reuben says it's mine, and Shimon says it's mine. Let's just quickly say the Rashbam, who sets a lot of these cases, they're very lacking in details about what was happening and what was the case, who was holding on to it, who was claiming chazaka. So the Rashbam says in middle of the Yamid, neither of them are holding on to this boat. It must be that no one is holding on to it, because that we already had right at the beginning of Bava Mitzia. Each one gets whatever he's holding on to. Well, so had they, in the case of Shnaim Eichse Metalis, we wouldn't say Kol Da'alim Gvar. Masha Enkin over here, we're saying Kol Da'alim Gvar. The din really would be if 2 people are arguing about something and neither is holding it. So generally the rule would be Kol Da'alim Gvar. Whoever is stronger, we let them fight it out amongst themselves, and whoever gets it, they get to keep it. And the theory is, I know the Rafal is looking very quizzical. How could you have such a din? How could we paskin that whoever gets it should get it? But if you remember before, we have a chashash of zilus in the Beidina. We don't want Bezdin to make a psak that will later on be overturned. We also don't want Bezdin to take away something from someone that it belongs to. So the feeling is, if we let them argue it out, if we let them fight it out, the person who is more dedicated, the person who has truth on his side, is more likely to win. Even if our experience might seem to indicate otherwise, it's not necessarily always the case. But the Gemara believes that maybe there were more Heilige Yidden back in the days, and the person who has a inkling of doubt, everyone really believes that. In every Bezdin, both sides always believe 100% they're right. But the guy has a little bit of doubt, he's not going to fight quite as hard. So that would really be the din here. Kol Da'alim Gvar. Also, Chad Minayu Lebeidina. One of them went to the Bezdin, V'amar Tifsua, and he said, I would like you to grab it. I'm not happy with this Kol Da'alim Gvar situation. I would like you to hold it in escrow. And the Rashbam says, Tifsua, Penyim Karen, I'm scared. This guy's going to sell it. But once he already, if at this point, once he went to Bezdin and said, I want Bezdin to be typhus, it seems like it ruins the possibility of Kol Da'alim Gvar. Because at this point, once someone sells it or grabs it, once it was brought to Bezdin's attention, unless Bezdin paskins Kol Da'alim Gvar and you fight it out, he can't grab it at this point. So Tifsua, I'm sorry. Zak the Gemara Adamaisina Chadsa Sadi Dididihu. Because I believe I'm going to be able to bring Edom. And I don't want that before. It's going to take me a couple of days. I have to bring the Edom from abroad. By the time I'm going to bring the Edom, he's going to grab it, he's going to sell it. And now I'm going to be faced with the difficulty of getting it out from the person who he sold it to. Tafsina no tafsina. Does Bezdin listen to his exhortations, to his request that they impound the boat until he can bring the Edom? Rav Huna Amar Tafsina. Rav Huna says with typhus, and Rav Chihuda Amar Loi Tafsina. Yehuda says no. That means the that it's going to depend on what's going to happen later on, as we're going to see. We're not going to look through the Rashbam, but we don't want the problem is, like we mentioned before, Bezin does not want to take something that will cause the actual owner to lose his rights. So the question is, do we allow him to, does Bezdin grab it in order to prevent the inconvenience of the true owner, if he's able to bring Adam later on, that he's not going to be able to easily get it from someone who the other person grabbed it and sold it? Or do we say, no, Bezdin sticks with its original plan. It doesn't want to get involved and put itself in the position of having made it more difficult for the true owner to grab it. So that's the machlekes of Huna and Rav Yehuda. So the Gemara says, so this person, one of the two disputants who had said, I'm going to bring Adam, he went and he wasn't able to find Adam. And the Rashbam says on this, that what happened was they take a paskin like Rav Huna, either they paskin like Rav Huna that Bezdin does grab it in the interim, and then he went and wasn't able to find Adam, or both disputants went to Bezdin and said, we both agree we want it to be an escrow. In that case, even according to Reb Yehuda, the Bezdin is allowed to take it. But in any case, the disputant who had said, I have Adam, wasn't able to find Adam. So he said, listen, I couldn't find Adam. Why? So release it from the escrow. This escrow is only because I said I have Adam and I wanted to protect from the other guy saying that selling it. But now that's over because I don't have Adam. We'll start again. Put it back to its original position of Kol Dal Gavar, that whoever is stronger can keep it. Mafkin alay mafkin. Do we take it from Bezdin or not? Yudai malay mafkin or Papa Amar mafkin. They disagree about what do we do in this case. The Helchasa loy tafsinan. The halacha is not like Rav Huna, that we're not typhus, and I guess it would seem like the reason why they were typhus in this case was because they both agreed to that the Bezdin should take it into their possession. And the toughest loymafkinen. And once they've taken into escrow, at that point you can't restore the original state and say kol da'alim kvar. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll continue tomorrow. It's Shem at 7 o'clock on Zoom.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.